Hi, welcome to Advocate for Your Rights from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. I'm Brett Parks. We continue our Informed Decisions series with a look at the legendary Greek king of Ithaca and the hero of Homer's epic 8th century BC poem, The Odyssey. I'm talking, of course, about Ulysses, sometimes known as Odysseus. You may be asking, what? I thought these videos were about informed healthcare decision making. Why are we back in high school humanities? Well, it turns out that a story from the Odyssey, written almost 3,000 years ago, inspired a very important concept in our world called the Ulysses Clause. So first, let's hear the story from an expert.
I'm Jason Lira. I'm a professor of literature, professor of English, and I teach ancient literature before 1650 for J. Sargent Reynolds Community College. The Odyssey is the sequel to the Iliad, and it is the story of Odysseus' very difficult journey home to Ithaca after the Trojan War is over. Odysseus is his name in Greek, and Ulysses is his name in Latin. Odysseus first gets a warning about the sirens as he is leaving the island of Circe, and as he is leaving her island, she warns him about several dangers that are coming up, and the first one is the sirens. They lived on an island with a lot of rocks and crashing surf, a really dangerous place to steer a ship. And when they saw a ship coming, they would begin to sing their song. And their song was supposedly the most beautiful song that anyone had ever heard. And it was so beautiful that if you were on a ship and you heard it, you would either steer your ship towards the island to go and meet these beautiful women who were singing the song, and you would run your ship aground on the rocks, or else you might just jump overboard and try to swim to the source of the sound, in which case, you would drown. Circe tells Ulysses that all he needs to do to get past the sirens is to instruct all of his men to plug their ears with wax. But Odysseus he's a little bit greedy because he wants to have it all. He wants to pass safely past the sirens, but he does not want to miss out on his opportunity to hear the most beautiful song that's ever been sung. So what he ends up doing is he does have all of his sailors stuff their ears with wax so they can't hear the song, but he goes on to tell them, tie me to the mast so that I can hear the song and but won't be able to jump into the water and swim to the sirens or do anything else that's self-destructive. And Ulysses also has the foresight to tell his men, when I hear that song, I'm going to go mad, and I am going to demand by words and by gestures that you release me so that I can go and pursue the source of this song. And he tells his men, don't listen to me. Once I start to go mad, once I start ranting, ignore everything that I have to say and only untie me once we are safely past this stretch of water. They stick with their instructions, and they do not release him until they're safely past. And then finally, once they're out of the troubled waters, they do untie Odysseus, making him the only person who ever heard the song of the sirens and survived.
Okay, that's a cool story, but how does it relate to informed health decision making? To answer that question, I'm joined again by Dana Trainum. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Brett.
So tell us about the Ulysses Clause.
The Ulysses Clause creates a protection for people who know that when they're not doing well and they lose capacity, they don't make the same decisions they would make if they did have capacity. Let me give you an example. Maybe that's the easiest way to explain it. So I was working with a young man who was doing very well. He had his own apartment, a job, a car, a girlfriend, he kind of had the life. And unfortunately, he started not doing so well. And he started making decisions that weren't in his best interest, and eventually lost capacity and had to go into the hospital. And because of the decisions he made before going into the hospital, he lost most of that stuff. He lost his job, and he lost his apartment, and his car was repossessed while he was in the hospital. And it was very hard for him because when he got out of the hospital, he had to start over. And when he got out and he was stable, he said, I'm not going to do that again. I learned my lesson. And as sometimes happens when people are in mental health recovery, it did happen again. And he went through sort of the same scenario. But then he found out about the Ulysses Clause. And he told me that it allows him to not have to go through that whole process again, because when he loses capacity and he starts making those decisions that aren't in his best interest, he knows someone that he trusts can come in and make decisions that he would have made if he weren't going through such a rough time. So with the Ulysses Clause, he was able to put in place decisions that could be put into place when he wasn't able to make those decisions at the time. Just as Ulysses told his men, listen to me when I'm saying now, and don't listen to me when I'm mad, quote unquote. He knew that at some point he was going to lose capacity to make decisions that were in his best interest. And so he told his men ahead of time, this is what I want you to do. Don't listen to me when I'm in that state. Listen to what I'm saying now when I'm stable. And it's the same thing with the Ulysses Clause for people who know that they don't make the best decisions for themselves when they're not stable.
Wow, okay, so that does make sense, but can you give me another example of what that may look like?
Sure, so someone through a Ulysses Clause might say, when I'm not doing well, I am going to refuse to take medication. But don't listen to me at that point when I have lost capacity and I'm not making decisions that are in my best interest. Follow the directions I put in writing when I was doing well.
So if I all of a sudden were placed in the hospital and I was incapacitated, how would my health agent handle that situation?
So if you had a Ulysses Clause, your agent would then be able to advocate for your doctor to follow the wishes you put in writing ahead of time and not what you were saying at the time. So in fact, you may be treated over your objection based on what you put in writing ahead of time.
So what if somebody doesn't want the Ulysses Clause?
Oh, it's absolutely voluntary. It's something that you actually have to opt in, and it has to be written into your advance directive. If it's not in your advance directive, then there is no Ulysses Clause.
So when would be the best time to actually fill out a Ulysses Clause?
When you decide that you want one and need one, it can be filled out at the time that you do your advance directive. It can be added to your advance directive later. The only thing that you have to do is have it signed by a physician or a psychologist to make it valid. And that's simply because it gives your agent a lot of authority to act over your objection, and it's just a protection.
Okay, also, if I did fill out a Ulysses Clause and a couple months down the road I decide I don't want that Ulysses Clause anymore, can I withdraw it? Or
Absolutely. You can change anything in your advance directive at any time. You can either write a new one and make the new one is the one that would be valid, or you could cross it out and put your initials and the date.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for coming in. That was very interesting. And thank you for watching. We have even more information on our website, dlcv.org. Remember to advocate for your rights.
The Disability Law Center of Virginia is here for you. We can help you understand your rights and point you towards resources to help address any problems related to your disability. You can contact us by calling 1-800-552-3962 or visiting our website at www.dlcv.org.
This video contains general information for educational purposes. This should not be considered legal advice. It is not a comprehensive statement of the law and may not reflect more recent legal developments. If you have specific questions concerning any matter contained in this video, or if you need legal advice, please consult with an attorney.